Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Boozer. I'm happy to welcome you to today's CUGC Connect with IGEL. We're going to be looking at OS 11 and why it's the modern, flexible answer to endpoint management, optimization, and control. So if you are dealing with thin client and have some questions, I know that you'll want to know all about this, and we will get started very shortly. But before we do, I want to introduce who's on our call with us today. Tobias Kreidel is the president of the CUGC Steering Committee. He is a CTP, and he can be found on Twitter at @tkreidel. He is going to be keeping an eye on the question panel for us today, so we'd like you to go ahead and type your questions in as we go. We're going to save those for the end of the presentation, but please do type them in as you have them, and Tobias is going to keep an eye on those for us, and then at the end of the session he will ask those aloud, and we'll have time for a Q&A discussion. Tobias, you want to say hello?
Yeah, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Those of you who know me know that I've been a long time aficionado of thin clients, and I'm really excited about what's being presented today. And we look very much forward to what you have to tell us about the latest IGEL release, Dan. And as Stephanie said, keep those questions coming in, and thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks, Tobias. One other note before I pass things along, we are recording today's session, so if you missed something or you need to go back and take a look at a slide or remember something, you will get a recording link in your email box tomorrow. It'll come straight from GoToWebinar, so be on the lookout for that. Also in there will be a few other resources for you as well. All right, our presenter today is Dan O'Farrell. He's Senior Director of Product Marketing at IGEL, and I'm happy to have you with us today, Dan. I'm gonna send you the screen right now so that you can get us started.
Great.
Here it comes.
Awesome. Hey, thanks, Stephanie, and hi, everybody. Again, Dan O'Farrell here. I'm going to go into full screen mode here as soon as I can. Let's see. Yeah. So great to have an opportunity to talk to everybody here in the Citrix user group community. I'm pretty excited about this latest release of IGEL, but I want to give you guys a little bit upfront tutorial on a little bit on IGEL, who we are, what we're all about, etc. So at IGEL, we're known as kind of a thin client. People will use the word thin clients when they hear about us, and we certainly made a name for ourselves as a quote-unquote thin client provider. Yet in reality, it's really has more to do than just thin clients. It's all about managing and controlling endpoints. So we still use the phrase thin client because that's kind of the area in which we've gained a reputation. And certainly the company is very well represented throughout Europe. Our headquarters is in Germany. We have a US headquarters now in the San Francisco Bay Area. And we are, if you've looked at the latest IDC numbers, have been gaining a lot of market share in the US. So IGEL views the United States as a very attractive opportunity, because what we're seeing is that more and more organizations, even outside kind of the traditional regulated industries, are starting to understand the value of moving Windows either into the cloud or inside the data center to make, first of all, the periphery of the network much more secure, and also to just vastly ease the task of standing up and imaging and configuring and operating and managing hundreds or thousands or even tens of thousands of endpoints. So the other thing you should know about IGEL is we've been long, recognized as a thin client provider. We've got really good hardware. The IGEL thin client devices, similar in size and function to what you might buy from somebody like a Dell with the Wise brand or HP. But our key distinction and our real kind of our reason for living is to provide what we call software-defined endpoints. In other words, our IGEL OS is designed to run on any compatible x86 device. And oftentimes you will find our software running on PCs or laptops or even thin clients from the likes of Lenovo and Dell and HP as they get converted into IGEL powered endpoints. So that's kind of your quick summary on IGEL and IGEL OS, which is our endpoint operating system. It's based on Linux. It's a Linux distribution. But with IGEL OS, let's see if I can move this, advance this guy. Here we go. The idea here is really three things. Our goal is to make the life of the IT endpoint administrator as easy as possible via solutions that focus on these three tenets, right? Simple, smart, and secure. We're constantly trying to figure out how can we make it even easier to deploy endpoints, to image endpoints, to stand up and manage them and scale. And in this latest release, we believe we've made it actually much easier for our partners and our end customers to actually acquire the technology and deploy it and to own it overall. Smarter in that, the goal here is to provide technology that can be applied anywhere on any compatible device with great flexibility. In fact, I'll talk a little bit later about a new capability that we call license portability, where you can download the IGEL OS software onto a target device and move that license to another device anywhere within your enterprise estate. So smart is all about not only making it simple, but doing it in a way that is very cost effective and maximizes your flexibility. And then finally, secure. I mean, this is what moving Windows into the data center is all about, right? And most companies are looking to secure their enterprise in regulated industries. It's all about meeting requirements of government or industry mandates, for example, HIPAA and healthcare, PCI and retail, et cetera. So, that's kind of a long-standing thing that we're always thinking about is how can we make this solution even more secure? So with OS 11, the whole idea here is, we're trying to make it as simple as possible to acquire the technology. So what we've done is, we've long been offering a combination of hardware and software, and we still will continue to offer these UD endpoint platforms, as we call them, UD2, UD3, UD6, UD7. Those are the models of our quote unquote thin clients. But what we've done is we've reduced the total number of software SKUs from 19 down to 3. So we have vastly simplified the process of ordering and acquiring the technology. And we've made it kind of easier for our customers to own and manage the technology once they acquire it, by separating the software from the hardware. And I'll show you how we did that. And I talk about software a lot, right? Because, if you think about it, these quote unquote client devices, we, along with HP and Dell and others, it's been somewhat of a game of leapfrog over the last, 8 years or so, where somebody comes out with a new model of an endpoint, and then the other guy comes out with another model that might have a slightly faster chip. And by the way, we all use the same chips and components. So really the way you distinguish your solution and offer more value to your customers is through your software. And really there's two key pieces of software that we believe offer greatest value to our customers. One is our IGEL OS. That is the Linux-based endpoint software that resides on all of your target managed devices. And then the IGEL Universal Management Suite, which is the software that resides on a centralized server to allow you to manage your hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of endpoints in a very easy, cost-effective way, very efficient manner. But with this software, what we've discovered is that how you license it can offer great benefit to your customers as well as your partners. So the software licensing itself can make a huge difference. And what we've done is we've actually vastly changed the way that we offer our software with this latest version, which has been shipping since last month, by the way. So it's called IGEL OS 11. The previous version, you know, we were thinking of, you know, going to 9, and we figured, you know, it would be 10 point something. But then I don't know if anybody here has ever seen the movie Spinal Tap, but we figured we're gonna crank it all the way up to 11. So this is OS 11. And it's similar to, like, you know, the comparison here is it looks like we've gone from a stunt plane to a sophisticated fighter jet in terms of the advancement that we've made and how we structure and license our software. So obviously the most important audience for this is our customers. So by going from the 19 separate SKUs, which would be a fairly extensive line card with one of our partners, we've boiled it all down to 3 SKUs. And what's really nice about the way we've done this is that from a pricing perspective, the SKUs now are very feature rich, which we believe offers much greater value per euro or value per dollar to our customers. It also gives them great flexibility. So if you are going through merger and acquisition, going through any kind of right sizing or organizational changes, we think the way we've constructed these license offers gives companies a lot more flexibility. And then the other thing is that, you know, if you look at the world-class providers of software, there's a certain baseline, a certain mechanism by which enterprise class software is typically offered. And we believe we are now at par with some of the largest well-known software companies in the world in terms of how we offer the software. And I'll give you specific examples. So, you know, traditionally, right, people think of us as a thin client provider, and we still are, right? So if you want to buy one of these killer German precision-built thin clients, you're more than welcome to. And it's great hardware, and we're actually coming out with a new version of our UD2 in the May timeframe, which will have, you know, and this is classic, right? It'll be even smaller, greater power, even more advanced kind of, you know, convective cooling to be extremely efficient, et cetera. So we will continue to offer world-class hardware. But what we've done is, instead of selling the hardware with the software as a quote-unquote thin client, we have separated the software out. So now if you look at our latest price list, you can still buy these UD models of endpoint devices, but it's really just a hardware purchase. Enabled to use it as an endpoint, as a managed endpoint, you need to buy the software separately. And by the way, we have been selling the software separately for quite some time, because as I mentioned at the top of this discussion, our IGEL OS software can run on any compatible x86 device. In fact, a lot of companies love the idea of aggregating all of their endpoints from many different vendors and having a single management platform from a single console to manage their entire estate of endpoints. And that's what you can do with IGEL OS 7, OS 11 UMS. The software comes in 2 forms. There's a foundation, kind of a base package, that's called Workspace Edition. And with that, you get the IGEL OS, which is our operating system that resides in all of your target endpoints, as well as the UMS, the Universal Management Suite, which is the server software that can allow you to manage and control all of those endpoints. Now, we also have another software package called the Enterprise Management Pack, and that is actually a subscription. And that provides some value-added, kind of more classic enterprise type capabilities as an option. So, and that's it. That's the basic entire software structure now. That's in 2 SKUs, and then there's a software maintenance, which is the 3rd SKU. So the Workspace Edition is a classic perpetual license that gives you all the essential features, right? All the essential functions of a managed, killer managed than client endpoint. The Enterprise Management Pack is a subscription. We are looking at a combination, right? So you might be wondering, well, why would you mix like the traditional perpetual license, right? Where when I buy that software, I own it forever, right? And why are you then layering on a subscription? And the answer to that is it's how enterprises typically buy software. And it's no different than buying Windows 10 and then layering on AutoCAD or layering on a subscription to Office 365 or layering on productivity software, or it's no different than that. So you start with your base, which is your perpetual license, and then you add other software packages onto it. In this case, it's a single software package subscription called the Enterprise Management Pack. So enterprises have been buying software like this for many years. So this actually places us more at par with the typical purchase habits of enterprises when they acquire software. Or think of Windows Server, right? On Windows Server, that's your platform. And then there are thousands of different types of software packages to layer on top of that, many of which are subscriptions. And a lot of them nowadays are cloud-based services. So it's just like that, follows that same model. What's new with our OS 11 is that we manage our licenses through a license pool construct. So every company that buys these products from us, the Workspace Edition or these subscriptions, they have their own portal where they can always see the status of the licenses that they have purchased, whether those licenses are in use or not, how many they have left before they've exhausted their license pool. And that works hand in hand with our universal management suite to make it super easy to have full insight to all of your licenses that you acquired, where they've been assigned, what specific endpoints, and when they'll expire. So one console gives you that global view of everything you need to know about the licenses you've acquired and their status, including the maintenance status associated with each one of those. So, question for the audience. What do organic free-range chickens and IGEL OS 11 software licenses have in common? And I actually gave a hint to this earlier on, if anybody can remember it. The answer is that they can both roam. So not unlike this free-range chicken who appears to be lounging on the beach on some tropical island, you can move your IGEL OS 11 from one target device to another. And that gives great flexibility to organizations who are doing any kind of M&A or organizational changes. Because again, one of the key values of IGEL is that companies can place our software on any compatible x86 device. So think about that classic 3 or 4 year hardware refresh cycle, where every three or 4 years you're giving your people new laptops. That is extremely costly and highly disruptive. So if you can extend the life of your existing laptops and PCs and desktops and even iPads, et cetera, so that they can be used for another 3 or 4 years with full functionality, with all the capability you need, that can be extremely valuable, especially when you're looking at thousands or tens of thousands of endpoints. So let me talk a little bit about these, aggregated software offers. The first one I mentioned before is called the Workspace Edition. That is a perpetual license, right? So once you acquire that, you own it forever. You have the right to have it updated and upgraded as long as it's on maintenance. And this gives you all the functionality of all the essential features of a great IGEL managed endpoint. It has the IGEL OS, which is this Linux-based read-only operating system compatible with any 64-bit device. It includes a multimedia codec pack because nowadays, let's face it, it's 2019. There is no reason whatsoever for any of your users to not have a great user experience. You know, in the old days, and I've been doing thin client stuff for quite some time, we used to talk about the task worker and the knowledge worker and the power user. Well, nowadays, you know, even if someone is a clerk, they can still oftentimes undergo video training, or they may still have to do some unified communication type of activity. So there's no reason. So this is now included. You get a great user experience. We have the Universal Management Suite, which is the software that runs on a server that manages all of your endpoints. And with that, we've included high availability. So if you want to stand up a second server, give yourself the ability to always have all of your endpoints available for management control, that's an option. But it comes with this. And then the other thing that we've included is a RESTful API. Because what we've discovered is that most of our larger customers are expecting this system to be able to communicate with a resident manager of managers or trouble ticketing system or reporting system. You know, whatever it is, it's kind of now the de facto mechanism by which you can allow a new system that's introduced into an enterprise to easily integrate and exchange valuable information with some other platform, which might be already the established platform for a variety of functions. So this is in here by default. So if you think about it, you look at this, these capabilities give you a really effective, highly managed endpoint solution across your enterprise. And again, this can run on any x86 device, including an IGEL hardware. And by the way, these other capabilities with IGEL OS and Universal Management Suite, in the past, customers had to pay for them as separate SKUs. Now it's all included. So greater value. Our software maintenance is needed if you want to get updates and upgrades. So again, when you buy the Workspace Edition, you own it forever. But if you want to move to the next version of software, want to get the next release, the latest feature releases and patches, etc., other than emergency security type stuff, you've got to be on maintenance. And with maintenance now, we are following kind of the classic, you know, basic, mid-range, and premium. So we include support with maintenance. The base support is called Select, which gives you your classic kind of Monday through Friday business hour coverage. We have higher level of support called Priority. That costs more on a slight premium over Select, and that gives you a shorter response window and greater hours of coverage. And then there's something we call Priority Plus, which is also optional if you want it. And this is assigned on a per endpoint basis. So, you know, if you've got endpoints in a part of the country or the world that are, you know, where you really deem those as critical, you might assign Priority Plus to them and have Select on others. You can mix and match this. But Priority Plus has an even shorter response window, 24/7 capability coverage. And these are available on a maintenance agreement of 1, 3, and 5-year options. So again, this now puts it more at par with classic enterprise software. I'm sure you guys have already seen very similar support structure in terms of support offerings. And then the final SKU is the enterprise management pack that I mentioned earlier. And this is software that is acquired via subscription. So we have a 1, 3, or 5-year subscription available on this. So this gets layered on top, if you will, on a subset of all of your other thin, you know, virtual desktop endpoints. And this includes a number of features, all of which used to be separate SKUs. But these are the value-added features that a lot of the larger enterprises are looking for. The cloud gateway allows you to manage devices that are off-network. So think of a remote office, home office, traveling user, remote campus, off-network site, and you can do that without requiring a VPN. So you can add it doesn't have to be kind of the HQ and the main site people. People off your network can still have their devices managed. We have something called a custom partition where we can create software that brings in a device under management that may not be part of the standard solution. So, a lot of companies can do some things like this with the use of scripting, etc. We call this custom partition. So a lot of larger enterprises will, no two organizations are alike, right? So this allows us to quickly accommodate. Maybe it's a weird, strange peripheral device or browser that's not supported in the standard release. This takes care of that. We have something called a shared workplace where think of a device like in a university lab or a device in a call center where you'll have a variety of users using that same device. The shared workplace allows you to assign profiles based on users so that when someone sits down at that device, it appears as their own with their limited set of capabilities based on what you deem is appropriate for that type of user. So great flexibility for those devices that sit in one spot and get shared by multiple people. We have an asset inventory tracker, so devices that are attached to your endpoints. You can basically track those devices, and even if they move from one endpoint to another, if it's under management by the UMS, you can look at the serial number, understand the name of the device, etc. If you have Windows devices and you want to bring them under management from this one single IGEL UMS console, we have the UMA, which enables you to do that. If you want to do some mobile device management with Apple Apple OS-based devices, you can fold that in under management. And again, so it's not just kind of classic thin client stuff here. This is comprehensive endpoint management of devices that are designed to deliver virtual desktops and cloud workspaces. And this subscription is available on a 1, 3, or 5-year subscription. So the flexibility here is that let's say you've got 5,000 endpoints, and maybe you'll apply this subscription to 500 of them, or maybe 1,000, right? It's completely up to you. It'll be some subset. You might want to try it out for a year, and at that time decide whether or not you want to renew, or maybe you want to renew on some devices and not on others. And since we have license portability, you can move it to another one. So you can react to the dynamics within your enterprise to figure out where do you need this extra capability, and you've got the flexibility to, pay as much as you wish. Maybe this site or this place is geared up for a right sizing or organizational change within the next year and a half. You might just get a 1-year subscription. So we think this gives our customers great flexibility in how they deploy the functionality they need and where. You guys will get access to this presentation. This is a cheat sheet of what I just said. So I'm not going to repeat what I just said, but this top left is the Workspace Edition, which is the software to turn a device into a managed endpoint by IGEL software. Top right is the Enterprise Management Pack, which is the subscription. And in the bottom middle there, we've got the various software maintenance capabilities. Again, select support comes with software maintenance. Not to be outdone and not to be diminished in any way is we have great hardware. And even though our software can run on any compatible x86 device, thereby extending its useful life, sometimes doubling the life, if a lot of customers still want to buy the whole package. And it's almost like the reason people buy appliances. You can stand up a device yourself, you can download it out of the device and bring it up. And by the way, it's pretty easy to do that with our IGEL software. But a lot of people say, just give me the whole thing packaged up. And by all means, we're super happy to do that. And we've got a range of thin clients that give you the classic combination of processor speed and interfaces, peripherals and protocols, etc. So, this range of endpoints from the UD3 to the UD6 and 7, we'll be coming out with a new UD2 in May, really should cover all the bases in terms of what your users need, right? Whether it's somebody who's a bank teller or some high-end engineer running CAD, CAM, and simulation type applications. So, with this new product structure, it really is all about the licensing. And prior to OS 11, when our customers would buy our hardware and our software, the software was spread across lots of different SKUs. It was difficult to track. And we have what we call this license portal, which is kind of the one window you need to see the status of your licenses. So, really what we've done for our customers is before the license portal, had all these different SKUs. You really didn't have keen insight to the status of your licenses, and it was sort of like, I remember when I moved to California, like longer ago than I dare tell you. I moved out across the US, drove across the country, and my brother and I went up to the Golden Gate Bridge. We drove across the bridge, wanted to see the view of San Francisco. And of course, when we went up there, it was like this. Couldn't see anything because it was a classic summer day in San Francisco and it was shrouded with fog. That's kind of the way it was for our customers with all these different SKUs, and some of which were perpetual, some were subscription, some came in 10 packs and 50 packs. It was just, you couldn't see anything. With our licensing portal that I told you about, you can now get minute detail on the status of your licenses. So it's sort of like walking up to the bridge and seeing every little rivet. You can understand the actual status. You completely understand and know your licensing situation. However, before OS 11, we still had the many SKUs. So now with IGEL OS 11, I understand that this is a different bridge. I've had people who are very savvy and they'll tell me, hey, this is not the Golden Gate Bridge. It's actually the Bay Bridge. So it's another view of San Francisco. But now you can see the whole thing, right? You've got all those SKUs condensed down to just the two product SKUs. You understand the status of licenses associated with both. You know the maintenance status assigned to each endpoint. So it really does give you this one console to understand the licensing, because the licensing is not effective unless you truly understand it. So we've done both. Created a new structure with vastly simplified licensing, and we've given you that clear, comprehensive view into your license. Pricing. For those of you who might be familiar with our pricing, our goal with this restructuring of the product offers, to make it simpler, was to make it super easy for our existing customers, our existing IGEL users to migrate from the previous IGEL OS 10 to the new IGEL OS 11 and its new packaging. So what's really nice for our existing customers is we've modeled the pricing to equal what it would have cost to just buy an IGEL UD3 thin client with software. So the structure of the Workspace Edition software, which again gives you all the essential features of a really great managed endpoint, is very similar to what customers paid in the past for the IGEL UD3 with OS 10, which, by the way, was a really good managed endpoint. So no big jump in price, even though there's greater value, because we want to encourage customers to migrate to OS 11. Likewise, the Enterprise Management Pack, which is that subscription with greater functionality, that is modeled after what we call the IGEL Cloud Gateway. That's kind of the star feature. That's the main reason organizations will add that subscription. That price, after an ownership of 3 years, is modeled after what we called previously our Cloud Gateway product, which was licensed in a manner where you, after that 3-year period, you pay about the same. But now you also get all those other products, right? You get the shared workplaces, you get the customization, you get the MDM, you get the inventory management. So much greater functionality for roughly the same price in a vastly simplified product structure. I guess that's why that guy's smiling. I don't know. So just about done, wrapping up here. I've been with IGEL since August of last year. Prior to that, I had spent quite a few years with another kind of well-known thin client company with a small hiatus to a large enterprise software company. But from the outside looking in, I knew that IGEL had this reputation for super simple, very easy, right? Easy to try, right? If you want to try our software, just download it from the web. Go to our website. On the home page, you'll see a download, and you can test our software out. Give it a try. So super easy to try. Going around clockwise, it's very, very easy to integrate into your environment because it runs on any x86 compatible device. So you can convert your existing laptops, PCs, whether they're Dell or HP or Lenovo, running Windows, right? You can convert them into IGEL managed endpoints with our software. In fact, we even have a product called the UD Pocket, which is about the size of a thumbnail that you pop into a USB port on any PC, and it temporarily turns it into an IGEL managed endpoint. So, just great flexibility there. Super easy. Easy to operate, right? With our UMS, it's very easy to image hundreds or thousands of devices. It's super effective. It doesn't, chew up all of your network bandwidth while it's doing that. It gives you a single console view of all of your endpoints. So, it makes it super easy for your people to operate. And then the fact that it runs on a single console for both the license portal and the UMS, and since we can manage devices on or off network, it makes the management task also incredibly easy. So with OS 11, though, what we think we've done is we're making it very easy to acquire our technology. It actually can now, it's much easier to flow it through our channel partners, and we are 100% channel modeled. We deliver all of our products through the channel, and much easier for our customers now because they're not looking at a huge line card anymore. They're looking at 2 software offers and a maintenance offer, and that's it. 3 SKUs. Of course, they can still buy hardware, and those are additional SKUs for each model of the hardware. And then easier to own, right? Because of this new software structure, very similar to how they are probably ordering software already, this perpetual and the subscription flexibility, and the fact that they now have this understanding of all their software through the license portal. It makes it super easy to understand the status, know when to add more licenses, understand when they can port a license from one device to the next and have that tracked. Super easy to own. Availability, actually we announced it at our Disrupt event last month, and this OS 11 is shipping now. So if you think about it, and this is my last slide, we focus on 3 things at IGEL, right? How can we save companies money from a capital investment standpoint? And that is manifested by the fact that this software runs on any x86 compatible device. So, don't have that massive hardware refresh. Even if your devices have depreciated or are near full depreciation, you can get a whole new lease on life, right? Invigorate those endpoints because it doesn't take a lot of power. It doesn't take a lot of horsepower to serve as an IGEL managed virtual desktop or cloud workspace endpoint. Operational savings, the UMS, right? A single console. One IT administrator from a single console can manage tens of thousands of endpoints, and that doesn't have to be a full-time job. So, think of whatever it takes right now to manage all those Windows devices. Put Windows in the data center where it belongs, or get it from the cloud, and then make sure that your users are accessing their workloads and app mix from a device that is super secure and super easy to manage. And then finally, security. This is a Linux-based platform. We've got all kinds of security measures built into the firmware. We support over 80 partners that are integrated into IGEL OS. And a lot of those partners are companies like Imprivata, right? Companies, NetIQ, companies that do all this kind of, multi-factor authentication, smart cards, biometric readers, whatever level of security you need. And obviously this is popular in healthcare and government. It's supported and integrated into our IGEL OS. Very quick shout out to our community. So not unlike this community at IGEL, we have our own community. If you join the community via the link below, you can get the latest assets, the latest kind of conversations going on. You can see what events and webinars are coming up. So I would say not unlike this community that I'm talking to today, you're more than welcome to join the IGEL community and participate in that. Okay, most people, this is their favorite slide. So we are giving away this year, in the fourth quarter, we'll be giving away a Porsche Taycan. This is this cool new product, all electric. It's essentially a software-defined car. That's why we're giving this away, because we're all about software-defined virtual endpoints. So if you want to have a shot at winning one of these, go to that address, ichallengeeverything.com. You'll be asked to do a few things. You'll enter the code VIR01. These are the things you'll be asked to do. Attend one of our qualifying events, and these are virtual or physical events. You complete a short online survey. You complete a 30-minute demo online, and then you are eligible to be the lucky recipient of this beautiful new Porsche toward the end of the year. Here's your incentive. So with that, I'd like to thank all of you for giving me this time to kind of give you the very latest from IGEL. Stephanie, I don't know if I hand it back to you now, but yeah.
I think we can take some time for questions. Several of you have put in some really good questions, and I know Tobias has been looking through those. So Tobias, if you want to pick out a few of those you want to ask Dan, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. We have about 15 minutes. One of the very first questions, Dan, which I think is something that pretty much anyone in the thin client market needs to evaluate, is that you had stated earlier that you used basically the same chips and components, and hence separating the software from the hardware, the user asks, ends up still being more expensive than many of the offerings coming from the competition. The question is therefore, how do you feel IGEL then differentiates itself in terms of its hardware compared to other vendors that offer, for example, some thin clients that are in some cases less expensive? And you did, elucidate earlier that there are obviously some advantages with the overall management components, the ability to install the software on basically any x86 device. But I think the user is in particular interested in your line of hardware products, and again, how that differentiation takes place.
Sure. Yeah. And again, the real vast cost savings that our customers typically experience is by placing our software onto their devices of choice. But if you choose to purchase hardware from IGEL, what's happened is with IGEL OS 11, the price of all of our hardware has gone down. Because now that you buy both separately, before it was a complete package of hardware and software, you would pay a specific price. Now the price of the hardware has gone down because you are buying two things. You want to have the complete solution, buy the hardware platform and the software itself. So if you add those together, if it's still a little bit more than somebody else's hardware/software solution, I think the IGEL position on this is twofold. Number one, save massive amounts of money from a capital expenditure basis, based on the fact that you can buy a combination of IGEL hardware and use hardware of your choice that you already have. And then number two, since it's so easy to stand up your endpoints, get them up and running, manage them from the UMS. Vast amounts of time and resource are needed to manage this entire endpoints estate. As I mentioned earlier, a single IT administrator, endpoint administrator, can do this part-time instead of, especially in a network of thousands of endpoints. And we have customer case studies where they talk about this, where they say, I required a staff of 5 to 8 people to go through the process of standing up these endpoints and getting them up and running. I'm now down to 1 person part-time because the IGEL UMS is so easy to use and so, kind of hassle-free from a management standpoint.
That's great. And I think, the other big differentiating factor is how often will a vendor come up with a firmware or a software update? Because in some cases, at least from my own experience, certain models are kind of left in the dust and you don't see anything for months to a year sometimes in some cases.
Yeah.
Along the same lines, Dan, you had mentioned the UD Pocket earlier, which is a very popular device, especially for people traveling around. Where does the UD Pocket fall into this new sales model?
So the UD Pocket actually can be viewed almost as another device of choice. So by plugging the UD Pocket into any laptop or PC, that device becomes an IGEL managed endpoint, right? And you then got Workspace Edition on that device. It's a full blown. Now it is acting as a full blown IGEL managed endpoint. If you want to layer on the enterprise management pack, you can do that as well. So, and we have customers where they will put a UD Pocket in, they think they'll be using it for a while, and they just don't move them. It's kind of, at that point, the UD Pocket is behaving as an equivalent to buying one of our Workspace Edition licenses by itself. But the nice thing about UD Pocket is, right, when you unplug it, that laptop goes back to its previous kind of, characteristics, and you can take that UD Pocket with you on the road or wherever and then plug it into another device. Great way to demo, etc. So UD Pocket is just another way of temporarily turning a device into an IGEL managed endpoint. But once it's in there, it's basically the same as adding Workspace Edition to the device.
Mm-hmm. And directly related to that, how far back for the actual IGEL UD devices based on the year of release date, is it possible to upgrade to IGEL OS 11 without any major issues, or is there no limitation on the age of the device? The user says it doesn't sound like it, but since other vendors do have limitations as to what versions you can put on certain devices, this particular user wanted to ask.
No, there's no limitation other than the standard, compatible limitations of any device. So I think it's like 2 megabytes of RAM. It's a processor speed of maybe, I think it might be a gigahertz. So the specs are out there for anyone to view online on our website. But you could have a UD device that's 7 years old that can run OS 11. Now, if it's 15 years old, maybe not, because it's got to meet that standard baseline for the compatibility. But that's it. No, any device you've bought within the last 5 or even 8 years meets that baseline. You can run OS 11.
That's great. Another question: would the MMCP better enable so-called soft phone compatibility in published virtual desktops?
Yeah, absolutely. So the MMCP, think of it as all the codecs and capabilities you need for unified communications and great graphics. So yeah, the answer to that is absolutely yes.
Yeah. And Charlie has another question. I believe you alluded to the answer being yes, but the question is, can you run HA across data centers, assuming that they're connected with a decent network bandwidth?
Yeah, that would be the key. And I don't have the specs for the amount of bandwidth, but if you've got, just a high-speed connection between two data centers, the HA should be able to work. But in a lot of cases, they're co-located. But of course, a lot of companies, the reason you do HA is you want to address disaster recovery type stuff. So as long as you've got an adequate connection between those two, you can certainly stand them up separately. Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. Another question regarding Citrix Workspace. How and does IGEL keep up with the Citrix Workspace releases in order to remain in line with the supported lifecycle timelines?
Yeah, so glad that question was asked because we believe this is one of our key strategic advantages. So IGEL releases 4 major software releases a year, so you can expect roughly every 3 months for a new software release to come out. And the fact that IGEL OS is based on Linux, and we've got this vast ecosystem of partners, which of course include Citrix, right, for the client, and it's really critical. So we are very, very good at staying in lockstep with the latest release of the Citrix Workspace and the receiver, so that there's very little lag, if you will. In fact, that's one of the advantages over some of the other thin client vendors. Whether, if it's Windows, well, one could argue, why are you putting Windows on your endpoints? Because that's the whole reason you should be following this model, is to keep Windows in the data center. But if it's something like ThinOS, Wise ThinOS from Dell, super secure, really good performance, but it takes a lot of development to stay up to speed, to catch up with not just your client software, but also all the peripherals, et cetera. So the fact that we're Linux based with an army of experienced Linux type programmers, et cetera, it allows us to stay really, really close, pretty much in lockstep with the latest Citrix releases.
And this is really important, I should point out, because Citrix has been very, very active in adding improvements to its HDX protocol. Yep. And you see massive improvements, pretty much with each release. And the 1903 release looks to be really exciting in terms of even further such things. Along the same lines, do you know if Citrix has the intention to match Linux Workspace app features with those of Windows? That is, the ability to select, for example, multiple audio outputs from within a VDI?
So I think you'd have to ask somebody from Citrix that question. No, I don't know. I think that's a great question for Citrix.
Yeah, I'm not sure myself, but I would suggest, Wilfred, that you go to the Citrix forum, and there's a whole area regarding Zen apps and desktop where you should be able to post that question.
Yeah, I would say from an IGEL perspective is, as those capabilities roll up into the next release of the Citrix software, you can be pretty confident that they'll be realized and manifested in an IGEL-powered network on those endpoints, because again, we're very, very quick to take the latest version of Citrix, so that gets inherited into your IGEL estate.
Here's a combined question regarding upgrade paths for version 10 licensed customers. Yep. In terms of how that works, and also in conjunction with that same question, one participant here says, referencing your answer earlier about running OS 11 on older systems, is that really completely true? Because, for example, you can't run it on UD3 LX40s and 41s because they're end of life. And if you could, how would it possibly be the same as OS 10 in terms of being able to use the codec package?
Yeah, certainly if a device is end of life. You know, we'll support a device for 3 years after end of life, so you can keep using the device. But if it is an end of life device, you might think twice about loading it on that, knowing that you know, it's not going to be around forever. Of course, the licenses are portable. So again, as long as the device itself has the raw baseline, you know, as defined compatibilities, you know, you could do that. I think most cases people will probably opt for a newer model, a later model IGEL device, simply because they want to, you know, don't want to have to kind of go through those manipulations. So yeah, I mean, so in the case of end of life or really old hardware, you're right. I mean, I'm not quite sure from a business standpoint why you'd want to do that anyway. So I think that answers the hardware question. From the migration from OS 10 to OS 11, we have a number of migration programs in place to make it as easy and seamless as possible for our customers to move from OS 10 to OS 11. For example, we have what we call a get one free program. So think of it this way: if I'm on OS 10, right, and I'm running IGEL OS 10, and I move to Workspace Edition, and I am already under software maintenance, the migration basically costs nothing. You get a free migration, and so you get those extra features and capabilities that come with Workspace Edition at no extra cost until your current maintenance subscription expires. At that time, you will then need to acquire software maintenance on that device. Now, we have what we call a get one free program. So if you bought your software from IGEL and your endpoint with the software on it, say anytime from the beginning of 2018 to the end of 2018, you essentially get free software maintenance through the end of 2019. And by the way, if you bought you know, products from IGEL, OS 10 based products from IGEL before it launched last month, 2019, you are allowed a free migration to OS 11 Workspace Edition with free software maintenance until the end of next year. So we've got programs like that, like, you know, for example, HA used to cost you some money. Obviously, it wasn't cheap. It's now part of the Workspace Edition. So if you purchased HA in the last year and a half, we will recognize that investment and subtract that from your licensing for you know, equal to the amount of money you've already spent. So we have a number of programs in place, all with the goal of making sure that investments already made get recognized as you move from OS 10 to OS 11, so you don't get quote unquote penalized for that migration. So if you're really interested, that can be supplied by your local kind of IGEL contact, can show you those migration programs, but a lot of thought went into that because our goal was to make it super easy for customers to migrate from 10 to 11.
Thank you for that. I have to throw one in. At Disrupt, there were some hints dropped about a new thin client that would be potentially based on the Nvidia Jetson platform of some sort. And the Jetson Nano was just introduced at GTC this week. Can you make any comments on that, or is this still something that is not publicly available yet?
You know, so I'm doing the old wink, wink, wink thing here and saying stay tuned. So we've had some very meaningful discussions with Nvidia. They're becoming a key partner of ours. We see an opportunity in that segment of the market for kind of a compact, well-performing virtual desktop / cloud workspaces device. So you know, expect more info to be coming throughout the year. Unfortunately, I'm not at liberty to divulge any kind of details, but I will say we're having some very good, positive discussions with Nvidia on an exciting new product.
Great. What separates the UMS from other management consoles for bigger and more complex customers? And in conjunction with that, how many nodes would you recommend a single UMS console be able to handle? And finally, how about across GUN for global deployment?
Yeah, so I think what makes the UMS distinct is that when IGEL first started as a company, it had IGEL OS and the UMS, and they've been tightly coupled ever since. So in other words, the evolution of the IGEL end-to-end solution is twofold. It's the IGEL OS, which has always talked directly to the UMS software. So think of literally 20 years of tuning from a management platform developed to do one thing with one type of optimized kind of operating system, which is IGEL OS. So from that, you get, and I've seen the consoles, I'm very familiar with the management consoles from one company. And if you look at the history of the prominent thin client vendors, those management systems typically started off as one thing and then were morphed into another. There's been some nice kind of fancy, web-based interfaces kind of laid on top of them. But typically what's happened is you had endpoints from a company. Oftentimes it was an acquisition that had its own management system. And then another management system was derived from elsewhere or combined with another one. So what I would submit is that the very, very tight integration of UMS with IGEL OS is unmatched, because the other prominent management platforms, I'm not going to call them a tack on or cobbled together, but they were not developed with the endpoint operating system in mind. In fact, those guys typically will support a proprietary OS, they'll support a Linux version, they'll support Windows. IGEL OS is all about UMS and IGEL OS and no other operating system. We can accommodate Windows through this UMA. We'll do that if you want to fold it in under. But it's this combination of development, co-development of UMS with IGEL OS, which is manifested through the experience you get from that user interface. I would say anyone who's asking this question, try out UMS. Ask for a trial, ask for a demo version, and experience it for yourself, and then contrast that if you've been using another platform, and you'll discover the difference. So what could take hours can take literally minutes. What would have taken weeks to do could be done in a half a day with UMS and IGEL OS combination. Now the last part of the question had something to do with global. I'm trying to understand what specifically is being asked there.
I'm sorry, the question, Dan, was how many nodes would you recommend a single UMS console be able to handle, and in particular across a GWAN type of setup for a global deployment?
Yeah, so we haven't really hit the theoretical limit. We have networks in place with tens of thousands of endpoints right now managed from a single console. So we don't know what the limit is. We know it's not hundreds of thousands, but we already know it's multiple tens of thousands. So if your enterprise estate is 200,000 endpoints, that I don't know, that might require another UMS. We haven't hit the theoretical limit yet. We've done stuff with simulation, but simulation is never exactly like the real world. So with simulation, we haven't hit the theoretical limit. There might be one out there, but we've yet to have a customer hit it yet. As far as global installations, we have global networks right now, right? And I mentioned IGEL is strong throughout Europe, and now getting very strong and getting stronger in the US. But a lot of those companies are global in nature. So we have endpoints in operation around the world because we've got global companies. We just don't have offices in those parts of the world. So there are no limitations that I am aware of in terms of UMS's capability to manage a kind of a global distributed network of endpoints. It already does it.
Right. I mean, as long as your network connectivity is decent, there really shouldn't be an issue as far as the management issue is concerned. And
Right.
Dan, let me throw just one more at you. Thank you so much for taking the time to go over a little bit here. I'll just throw one more question at you, and then maybe we'll go back to Stephanie so that she can wrap things up.
Sure.
And that question is, will each release of IGEL OS contain the option of possibly keeping the LTSR version of the receiver / workspace app and Skype RTME?
I don't know. I don't know that. So that's a pretty specific question. I'd have to, I'm not going to guess, so I would have to find that out for you, but I don't know the answer.
Sounds good. And folks, again, if you have any additional questions, or if some of the questions that you posed did not get fully answered, please take the time to go on the CUGC site and post your questions in conjunction with the recording of the webinar, which will be up in a while. And with that, I will personally thank Dan and thank everyone for participating, and hand things back to Stephanie.
Thank you. Thank you, Tobias. Thank you, Dan. And thank you all for attending today. If those of you who opted in to possibly win a skateboard, we will choose the winner off the air. So that's a random selection, and we will post the winner on mycugc.org and announce it on Twitter. So be sure to follow us on Twitter at mycugc. So look out for that. I'm very excited to find out who wins. And I think Tobias issued a challenge before we came on today. If you're coming to Synergy and you're the winner of the skateboard, he'll autograph it for you if you bring it.
That's right. There was a little kind of an interesting Twitter discussion revolving around that, and so yeah, bring winner, please bring your skateboard, bring your Sharpie, and I would be more than happy to autograph it for you.
Yeah, and by the way, you mentioned Synergy. We at IGEL will have a separate exhibit, our own exhibit at Synergy. We're really looking forward to it. So anybody in this audience who wants to stop by, we'll have a number of experts at our exhibit, including myself. I'll be in like the theater area the whole time. So I'd be thrilled to meet anybody out there who wants to stop by the exhibit and with even more questions. So it's not that far off. Yep.
That's right. We're getting really close, and CUGC will be there again as usual. So make sure you guys stop by the CUGC booth. And if you aren't a member of CUGC, please do sign up. We have groups all around the world. They have local meetings. We have lots of resources for you online on our website. We have lots of webinars, forum discussions. If you have questions, it's a great place to go get your questions answered. And lots of technical blogs by people like Tobias here, who's with us today. So
right, and be sure also to, if you're coming to Synergy, CUGC has a tradition of presenting a pre-conference get-together. Make sure to come, mingle, meet some of us folks there, as well as your fellow CUGC members. There's also the opportunity to become a CUGC member if you have not done so. We'd love to see you.
That's right. So we have all those details out on our website. Those will be rolling out soon. So just stop by and take a look. And with that, I will let everyone get back to their day. Thanks again, Dan. Thanks, and again, Tobias. Appreciate both of you giving us your time today. And again, as Tobias said, if we didn't get to your question, I'll make sure Dan gets those questions immediately after this, and I will get answers for you. In your follow-up email, you'll have a link to the discussion thread that's on the CUGC website, and that will be posted there as soon as I get all that information back for you.
Great.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a
Bye.
great day. Bye.